I'm going to read a couple of elegiac poems from this book, the Housing the Dead, the Last Poems. I think I'll read, yes, the afterword, which will put the things in the picture. I recently visited Ebeneezer Elliott's grave in Darfield Churchyard and found that though many tombs were as run down as I remembered, there was considerable work afoot to make that place once more the garden of peace and decency, the Locus Aminus, which is one of England's finest achievements. Our forebears jovially referred to it as God's acre. Another native achievement is the tradition of reflective verse arising from such garths, of which Gray's Elegy is the most well known. Akin to this tradition is that of the poet celebrating the death of a fellow poet, lamenting not just the death, but the neglect of the poet's work. As I anticipate Elliott's work partakes in no small measure of this neglect, I'll give a sample of his verse and the plain, manly line of his that I value. This is his own epitaph. Stop, mortal, here thy brother lies, the poet of the poor. His books were rivers, words, woods and skies, the meadow and the moor. His teachers were the torn heart's wail, the tyrant and the slave, the street, the factory, the jail, the palace and the grave. The meanest thing, earth's feeblest worm, he is feared to scorn or hate, and honoured in the peasant's form, the equal of the great. But if he loved the rich who make the poor man's little more, ill could he praise the rich who take from plundered labour's store. A hand to do, a head to plan, a heart to feel and dare. Tell man's worst foes, here lies the man who drew them as they are. The megalithic remains, dolmens and menhirs, have long been my favoured objects in summers in France, particularly in Brittany. They are the literature of the people who made them, and we must deduce their religion and values from what they have left us, these permanent focal features of a loved landscape. And of course we can only read their religion by the patterns and depth of our own. That throws the question back to our own answers, religious or irreligious. How are we to honour and house the dead? Societies unhappy to share the world with God will see the matter solely in terms of waste disposal, but at the same time will feel embarrassed by the sentiment that wants to believe life means more than the pit and the pyre consumes. It was in this context that I wrote on the cemetery where my father is interred, where the decency aimed at was a military precision. The honour and equality in death, insisted on by the uniform headstones in orderly ranks, contrasts with the social inequality of the private Darfield tombstones. To that problem, my testament offers some kind of answer. Our current crematoria, despite their acutely embarrassing ambience, offer this advantage, that the rotting process is rendered as instant as coffee, and so the remains can be put to whatever disposal the executor is minded to. People are scattered on mountains, in lakes, or cemented into walls with equal decorum. My preference to be mixed with the ashes of the one my life has been mixed with is itself a sort of epitaph, with a romantic tonality. And I suppose I won't mind where we are finally housed, as long as we're together. Elegy in a Victorian churchyard, at the tomb of Ebeneezer Elliott, the Corn Law rhymer. The Darfield churchyard is no pastoral scene, no place for owls to mope or ploughmen plod. much more the haunt of scallywags who've been practicing writing what they think obscene, not knowing this acre once belonged to God. The dead are housed here to endure decay, the out of sight becoming out of mind. But here decay strikes with its own display. Cracked stones and leaning crosses all betray the hopes of church and kin they left behind. Fame bought a tomb for Elliott at some cost, but drew the line at upkeep and repair. So now subsidence, vandalism, frost have done their worst. The battle has been lost. The broken lid can't keep its inmate there. Even the railings that enclose the tomb to keep the ghost in prison are at fault. For health and safety in one afternoon has shorn the pointed finials off, while one by one the bars give way to kids' assault. Say that the tomb is dead and gone as well as him it entertained a while inside. What then remains of his remains? In hell or heaven rests or unrests his soul, while fell Sergeant Death affirms the body mortified. The life is lost, or all but lost within the biographies of names you never knew. His work is out of print, but maybe in some library's secret stack you might get in if your research topic needs you to. It's hard to tell if Darfield feels ashamed because its famous son has been forgotten. Perhaps it's that he's got a funny name that fashion has left high and dry like fame, but it's a fact that his reputation's rotten. He shares this consecrated plot with men, 200 of them nearly, in one hole like that they spent their lives in, until when in death a single blast united them, their lives a token of the cost of coal. And those 10 miners of a later age, the youngest of them only 17, his one-day fame adorns the public page, who, just like helpless sparrows in a cage, fell to their dreadful doom at Houghton, Maine. How should we honour him? Perhaps a book of verses could be chained inside the church for visitors to read, at which some crook might be induced to try his dexterous luck and nick it, prompting headlines and a search. In elegies of brother poets, it seems, the dead beloved of the muses lie, with mourning lines of love that weave the themes to make a shroud of music out of screams, keening a coronal out of a cry. For poets should be crowned, but not with gold. Laurels enough, a coronet of leaves, a crown of life and not of Pluto's mould. The nymph it came from never will be old, and when the poet's dead, nobody grieves. Nobody grieves because his lifetime sings has been transfigured into something else. Hints at mythology in common things, music of melancholy goodness brings, the cheerful summons of 1,000 bells. Theirs is a thankless privilege in the main, to make of the whole world a distillation, transforming common pleasure into pain and common pain to pleasure, so that gain each way affirms the joy of tribulation. Neither is God left out of it, for he will set things off and after bide his time. The will of poets, as all mankind, is free to quiz and curse authority, yet Rochester is saved in his last line. It's nae lament for the makers that I make, more a salute to a lost fraternity that didn't know each other, nor would take the trouble to attend each other's wake, though bound together for eternity. Bound with the silken tress the muse once left, in token that she wouldn't leave for good. It's what we have in common, and no theft can take it from us. It's the very weft and signal image of our brotherhood. But should we seek to rhyme without her say, and set ourselves above her, then our pride, our all too human pride, will have its way and bring us to a fall. For we are clay, nothing but clay, unless the Spirit guide. So there's an end of my melodious tear for one who has been wiped away by time. If it concerns you, why not lift a beer and wish the poor old codger some good cheer, or even write him one good corn law rhyme. Finally, here's my testament. And since our life and love shall end, set down our final testament. We can take nothing with us, nay, even the memories to mend our broken minds and bodies, lent us a while and now recalled away. We leave our souls to God. That's not a problem. Predisposed their fall, their safety in his will, their lot in his grace to most safely graze. For though we are no good at all, we rest in his mysterious ways. Our chattels that were treasures once, in mortuary auction rooms shall be knocked down to others' zest to get hands on a bargain. Poems I gave to oblivion, sons and a daughter can divide the rest. But what of flesh and bones? Maggots have long had title to them, but now new Laban's realm has favoured faggots for quick and clean disposal. Well, it's right our roads to heaven cut through the municipal fires of hell. And as we spent our lives in one another's ease, so let us burn and mix our ashes with our vows, where they shall never see the sun. All our embraces, all our rows be housed in one eternal earth.